What up, תל אביב? טוב, אז טוב לראות שאתם חיים, אחרי האוכל, הכל טוב יפה. אז זה הולך להיות הרצאה על Developer Tools. כולם פה? In English? Okay, so the talk is going to be in English, so everybody can understand. So let's begin. Hi, I'm Tzook. I'm a web tech lead in MyHeritage. I don't bite. This talk is for you. Okay, it will help you to debug code better, to develop your code faster, and to code stronger. The developer tools enable us to do a lot of things that make the code much easier to debug, to develop, to test. And this talk will teach you a lot of things about it. If anybody has a question, he can come afterwards to MyHeritage booth. I'll be there and I'll answer any questions if they want. So about MyHeritage, some of you might have heard about us. MyHeritage is a very big company. We have a lot of employees and a lot of database. We have over 7 billion historical records. We have over 2.7 people in trees, in family trees. We have over 90 million registered users, and we have a lot of beer. MyHeritage is a company that does a lot of things. We help people find their relatives, so I can add my grandma and my grandpa, and they might be in another tree that somebody else added, and it will tell me that somebody else added them, and I can add more information. MyHeritage is awesome. We also do DNA, so we sell DNA kits, and after the user gets his DNA, we tell him that his ethnic, מוצא אתני, his ethnicity, and if we found other relatives that also did DNA tests, we can link them, so we can find relatives of you. And we care about velocity when we develop in MyHeritage, and we know that the developer tools are very great for that, and they can help us develop much faster and much quicker, and with much more quality. So let's start with small questions. If you know what these terms are, please raise your hand. So who knows what's the mobile emulator? Raise your hand. Okay, a lot of people know. Who knows how to throttle network? Okay, I see less hands. Who knows what's $0? Ah, surprising. Who knows $_? Okay, last people. Who knows how to get an element scope from the console? Okay. Who knows the function monitor? Okay. Monitor events? Has anybody heard? Black box? Okay, so those of you that had their hands up, send me your resumes afterward. The rest of us, this talk is exactly for you. So let's begin. As you can see, on the right side, I have the DNA results of my brother, Noam. Woo! He's also working with us in the company. Yeah, it's a family company. So his DNA results, I just want to show them. Does the sound work? I guess that's a yes. Okay, so that's his DNA results. He's a lot of Ashkenazi, so me too. And as you can see, that's the next page that we can see his ethnicity in a more detailed manner. And we can see a small map that says it, and I'll show a little bit about it. So we have this result of num. Let's change it a little bit to make it ours, just to play with the console developer. So let's start with a way to get elements from the DOM. So let's say I have this small element. I have this name, num elbowing. How can I get it? How can I get it from the console? Does anybody have an idea? How do I get this element? So a native option would be document.get element by, I can't by ID because it doesn't have an ID, so I'll get it by class name, so I'll get by name, but then I have a lot of results. So I'll go by the results and see, okay, I have a lot of results. Oh. Now we see. So I have a lot of results, and I just go over them and see, oh, okay, this is the one, so I'll take the one in place 11. So I say, okay, place 11. Exactly, that's it. Does anybody think of an easier way? So that's why we have $0. $0 basically says, okay, the element that right now I'm selecting in the DOM, that's the one you're referencing. So this is selected, and when I say $0, it's basically a reference to that. Once I move, it's the reference to someone else. Okay, don't get excited. It's just the beginning. So it helps us get a quick access to the DOM. And just after each slide, I will clean the console, so I do that with Command K. That's a quick shortcut. So $0. Let's say I selected $0, and then I move to someone else. But I want to keep working with that element, so how will I do it? So when I evaluate something in the console, the last thing that I did will be saved in $_. So $_ always saves the last thing that I did. Even though I moved to someone else, $0 is the last thing that I evaluated. So with $_ I can use this element that I wanted, and I can say, okay, I want to make it an Angular element, $_ because it's the last one that I used. And then I have an Angular element, and on that result, which is still $_, it's the last result I did, I can do $scope. And scope is a function in Angular which gives us the element scope. Okay, so, you see? Yeah. So with the scope, I can get the current scope, and then I can reference it with $_ because it's the last thing. Just make sure when you use .scope that you don't have this line enabled because it disables it. If it doesn't work for you, make sure you don't have this. Does anybody know any easier way to get an element scope to see it? Great, so somebody here said batarang, and that's exactly the solution. There's an extension for Chrome that is called batarang, and it gives us this small extension that basically is a shortcut for the scope of each element. So if I'm selecting this element, I can have its scope automatically here, instead of having to write the entire procedure downstairs. And if any of you uses Angular 2, there's also a good extension for Angular 2 called Augury. I recommend using it. So let's say that I have a modification that I want to do. Let's say we want to change the name of num. We want to say, okay, I have this element, and I want to say, okay, let's take the profile name, and let's change it. Let's change it to Tzook HaMelech. Tzook the king. Okay, but we don't see that it changed. We still see num elbowing, so what do we do? Does anybody know why it didn't change, even though we changed it? Okay, so the solution is pretty marked here. We need to call apply. So we don't really have a quick access to apply. But we do have the elements that we have here. So we can right-click on an element, and we can store it as a global variable. So we know that each scope has the $root, which is the root scope. So we can store it as a global variable, and then it's saved automatically on temp1. And then we can reference temp1 and call apply. And once we do that, we see that the name has changed over here. Okay, now let's say that we are interested in how apply actually works. So we can still reference temp1, and we can say, okay, what is the apply function? And it tells us. And once we right-click on it, we can either save it as a global variable again, which why would we do? And we can look at the function definition. So when we click on it, it actually brings us to the document, to the code, and we can see how it looks. But as you can see, the code right now is a little bit mashed up. It doesn't look really readable. So we have this small thing called pretty print. It doesn't show the hover. Okay, so we have the pretty print, and once you click on the pretty print, it makes everything much easier to read. So after we've seen this, we can start working about using the apply a little bit smarter. So let's say we have apply, and now we not only want to see where it is, we want to see when somebody calls it. So we use a new function that is available in the Chrome developer tools. Okay, I'll just show you. When you say monitor, it's a function. And we call monitor on the apply. And basically, it will tell us now every time that we call apply that it has been called. So if we do temp1.apply, it tells us that the function applied called. Even better than that, if we give it a function or any argument, it will say that it has been called with the arguments that were called with. And once we want to stop monitoring, we can say unmonitor, and then it just cancels it. And when we call apply again, it wouldn't tell us. If we want to, even better, not just know when apply has been called, if we want to know when it has been called and to stop there to debug, we can say debug. Okay, it's a function. We just say debug. Okay, let's temp1.apply. And once we call temp1.apply, it will automatically stop in a breakpoint on that function. If we want to clear the debug, we can say undebug. And then it stops debugging each time that it gets to apply. We can also, if we want, we can also put the word debugger in the code, and it also breaks. It acts as a breakpoint, just like debugging a function. We can just put a normal breakpoint, like clicking on this side, it will break. We can also make this breakpoint conditional. So if we put this breakpoint here, we see the different color, and we right-click on it, we can actually say, okay, let's edit this breakpoint and say only if E is the function argument. So if E is not undefined, only then breakpoint. So when we say apply, it's called with undefined, so it wouldn't break. But if we do a function, it breaks because E is undefined, and we see that. So to remove it, we just click or disable, and we can just click. Now let's see this element again, Tzook the king. That's basically my name. So let's say that we want to know when we click on it if the touch end or the click event is sent first. Does anybody know that question? Who thinks touch end is called before click? Raise your hand. Who thinks otherwise? Who is still asleep? So how will we know that? Is there an easy way? So yes, there is. There is a function called monitor events. It's again a native Chrome function, and we say monitor events, we give it an element. So right now we are hovering on it, we can say $0. And then it monitors all events on that element, which means every time that we click on it, every time that we do something with the element, it will log anything that has to do with this element. Okay? But wait, it's too much. I don't want all that. Let's take it back. Let's unmonitor that. We want only specific events. We said that we want only click, right? Yeah. So if we monitor only events of click, it will actually say when we do click. But we want other events also. So we can actually tell it, OK, let's do click and mouse, not mouse, and touch start and touch end. We can give it a list. And then it tells us each one. And here we see our results. We see that touch end actually is called before click. We even see if we click and we move the mouse and we don't remove it, we don't see a click. Sometimes we only get touch end. If we click long and remove, we don't see a click. But let's make it even better. We see that we have touch start and touch end. And yeah, thank you. So we see that it does touch start. So instead of these two, we can even minify it. We can short it to be just touch. So we don't have to say both these types. And it will know that touch event and touch start are related to the same one. And then when I click, it gives me those events. So it can actually listen to global events. So I can just give it touch, and then it applies to both of them. So let's take a look at how, when I put an event on something, it looks. So let's say, OK, let's do angular.element $0. And let's say, OK, when you click on this element, this is the element, the name. I want to do something when you click on it. So I'll do a function. The function will simply say, OK, console.log1. OK, so basically now when I click on the element, it says 1. Simple as that. Now in this tab, in the event listeners tab, I can actually see the click. I can see when somebody clicks on it, I can see who attached the element, who attached the event. So when somebody clicks, I see the source. But it doesn't really interest us that jQuery did this. We want to see where our code did it. Even though we assigned the click, it doesn't know that it did it because the function that assigned the click is inside jQuery, somewhere deep down. So for that, we have framework listeners. We have this toggle. And when we click on it, look at how the source changes to actually where the code is. And when we click on it, it gives us to the reference of the code that we wrote. Okay? Just to emphasize it, without it, it gives us some function inside jQuery that doesn't really matter to us. Because we know that deep down it assigned the original event handler in jQuery. But we want to see the one in our code, the one that we did. Furthermore, if we want to see all events that are global to something, for example, if we will go to sources, we can see here a list of breakpoints, and we can see event listener breakpoints. Basically, it means that there are a lot of events native to the browser or events that we can use on the window. For example, we have mouse events. So in mouse events, we have click, we have mouse down, we have a lot of events. And then when I click on it, it basically will tell me a breakpoint every time it is called. So right now I didn't click, and every time I click on something, it will breakpoint on all the places that assign themselves to it. And it goes on. So to remove it, we use the click. Furthermore, we can even use it to know a lot of interesting things. For example, when somebody resizes or when somebody scrolls, I want to know when somebody listens to those events. So if I have a listener that it listens to scroll, this will mean, OK, when that listener fires, break on it. So I have a scroll, and when I scroll, I know that there are places that stop it. So it just breaks there. So I know this place is listening to scroll, and it just pauses. And it goes on to the next handler of the function, and so on. So if we have some places that listen to scroll events, and we don't know where, we just go to the sources and put a V here in the checkbox, and then it breaks. It breakpoints. So we can even do set interval and clear interval. Let's say somebody, somewhere in the code, okay. So event listeners, black box. Let's look at the issue, okay? So let's say we have a function that we call it x, and x does Angular dot for each, which is a function that goes on a list of elements, 1 and 2, and it accepts a function. This function will say, okay, just log it. Log what the element is. And we say x, it will print 1 and 2. Okay, so let's debug how x works. Now when we call x, it basically says, okay, for each element that we have, console log something. How do I get here? I want to continue to the next place, and I want to go inside to the next function. But if I go into the next function, it will go inside for each. Okay, I'll demonstrate. If I go here, it goes inside for each. That's not what I want. I want to get to my part of the code. Okay, so there's something called black box. We go to the settings. That's a shortcut, Command-Shift-P. It opens a shortcut for everything. I go to the settings, and there's black box here. In black box, I can give it a pattern of a script. Okay, it's a regular expression pattern. And I say black box it. And then when I save, and I go again to my code, now when I will go inside the next line of code, it will not go to for each. It will stay in my context. It will go to my code. And that's amazing. It saves a lot of time. We can also do a lot of interesting things. We can exit jar breakpoint. Anytime that we have an Ajax, we can debug it and know when the Ajax was fired, okay? It's basically done in the same section. We go down to the exit jar breakpoint, and we just add a pattern. And once we see that, it will pause on the breakpoint. And even better, it will know how to resolve to the place with a black box. So it works well with it. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that well with Angular. Angular 2 works fine with it. So to summarize, this is just the beginning. There are a lot of benefits and tools that can be done in the Chrome developer tools. I recommend reading documentation and following new versions. There are a lot of cool things like debugging animations and code coverage that are added on a day-to-day basis. And I recommend to go through it. If anybody wants to sharpen the developer tools, there's a fun riddle that we built at MyHeritage, and you can practice anything there. It's in this URL, myheritage.riddle, and it gives us a chance to practice what we just learned, and it's a fun riddle. Enjoy, it looks like that, and you can enjoy doing that. So thank you. This is a list of what we've gone through, and you can take a picture of it and look at it later. And I've been Tzook. Thank you.